Hi guys, Mark Dawes, NFPS Limited, and what I'd like to take you through today is something called an ECFA Analysis chart. Now, ECFA stands for Events and Causal Factor Analysis, and it's part of what they call root cause analysis, which is where when a direct fault occurs which could result in someone being harmed or an accident or an incident occurring, we can look to see whether or not that was actually attributable directly to what someone did, so the individual was at fault, or whether there are more systematic and causal factors as more latent failings within an organisation and its systems of work. So what you've got on the screen in front of you now is a graphic representation of a typical ECFA type model, and they come in various shapes and forms, and this is just one. But it is a great model that we use quite regularly, and you can use too, for identifying where failings can occur so you can start amending that system of work and making it safer. Or indeed if you need to challenge someone who you feel is giving you wrong advice. And we've used this on a number of occasions to actually speak to various government departments and even ministers when we've had to challenge government documentation. So I'm going to take you through a hypothetical situation, and although hypothetical, it has its roots in some incidents that occurred many years ago. So what we're going to do now is deal with the first set of events, which are called primary events, and this is the lead up to what went wrong. And the primary set of events in this case was that a child leaves the care home or the school. The staff didn't stop the child from leaving, and as a result, the child was either harmed physically or sexually abused or whatever. They're the primary set of events. Now, if you notice, above and below the primary set of events are what they call secondary level events, and these are other areas that we need to look at. So in this case, let's go to the row below and look at the secondary events that could have led up to this. In this case, we had an inspector inspect the home or the school, and the inspector will interpret compliance with the standards. So they're there to make sure that the home or the school is complying with the national standards that they're expected to comply with. In this case, however, the inspector provided subjective advice on the use of restraint, and that advice actually said that the staff cannot stop children from leaving the home and they cannot restrain them because the children have human rights and you can't remove those rights and you can't restrain them because they're free to come and go as they wish. The other set of secondary events is what the management did or didn't do. And in this case, the management, fearing any negative consequences from an inspector's report, did not challenge the report, but instead appeased the inspector by actually actively encouraging and promoting a no restraint policy. Now, as a result of that, the staff feared being disciplined and prosecuted if they were to actually stop a child from leaving the home, so they don't stop the child from leaving, and as a result of that, the child is harmed. So there's the model there, and as you can already see, you've got the primary set of events, the child leaving the home, the staff not stopping the child, and the child being harmed, and you've got the secondary events above and below that primary level. Now, if we look at this more closely, we can see here that the manager was not trained or operationally competent to actually advise on the use of force for restraint purposes. When we looked into this situation, the manager, in a past event that we dealt with, had actually had no training on the use of force and had no training in restraint. And this, therefore, is seen as a systematic and or causal factor in the child being harmed. Furthermore, if we go back to the secondary set of events below that the inspector was involved with, the inspector too was not trained or operationally competent in the use of force. And in fact, we've got correspondence today from an inspectorate that says that their inspectors actually only get 3 hours classroom training on the use of force but do not get any restraint training. This again is a systematic failure or a causal factor in the child being harmed because bad advice was given, incompetent advice was given, which put pressure on the management of the home, who in turn put pressure on the staff, and staff, fearing discipline, didn't stop the child from leaving, and as a result of that, a child was harmed. So that's an ECFA analysis model. That's how we use it in that situation there. But just think for a minute, you can apply this to anything. You could apply this where you're getting subjective advice that you may not actually be comfortable with, where someone says that you can't use a certain technique, or you have to use a different type of technique, or you can do this and you can't do that. And as a result of that, you can even use this proactively to look at what the harm could be and then work your way back from there. So that's quite a simple analysis model. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have any questions about this at all, get in touch, drop me an email or pick up the phone. Be delighted to talk to you. Thanks very much for listening.